Hey guys, I'm here. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. I'm trying to get my little bendy tripod to function properly. Jeez Louise. Okay, let's see if I can get this. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm having some technical difficulties. You guys are crooked. Jeez Louise. Okay. I think we got it. Okay, I think these are still so crooked. Oh well. Sometimes I'll bend the heck out of my little bendy tripod until it's so bent I have to do some major damage control. How are you guys today? Happy Friday. I'm sorry I'm a little late. It's what you guys are seeing is literally the morning that I'm having. So there we go. We all have those kinds of mornings. And I put only half my makeup on. I think I only have it on half my face. I just realized that. Oh well, it happens. All right, well, I know you guys have some questions for me, as always, which I love. I love spending time with you guys. Let's get started. So thoughts on Juice Plus. Let's see. Thoughts on Juice Plus. Everyone and their mom is talking about it for allergies. It's a scam. It's not even organic, which is ridiculous, but no one can put the actual nutrients you need from plants into a pill. And anyone that tells you otherwise either doesn't understand the body, doesn't understand what they're selling, or truly is evil. There's a couple different people. They're either ignorant or they're blatantly evil. And I wouldn't support either of them. A lot of these MLM companies are really, really preying on people that want a quick fix. They're still selling the idea that your health issues can just be so simple, right? And it's if that was the case, we would have found out already. And we know nothing in life is that simple. And so why would health be that simple? And so don't waste your money. Don't be scammed. It's one of those things where you just see it for what it is. It's pretty much fruit and vegetable powder put into a pill. Okay. Questions on magnesium. Is glycinate same as bisglycinate? Best way to take, or brands, please? Well, keep in mind with all nutrients, it's always best to get nutrients, including minerals, from your food. And so supplementing something like magnesium, which usually should be done, should not be a switcheroo for getting magnesium from your foods. That still should be done. But with that being said, magnesium glycinate can really help you sleep, and then magnesium malate and threonate are also really good forms. I like bicarbonate. That's why I showed you guys how to make it on Instagram. And it's a very easy way, you just add it to your water bottle, but getting it from a multiple forms and multiple sources is a really good idea. But yeah, glycinate and bisglycinate are very similar. It's just how they've been broken down. And those are easier to absorb by the body. But the best way to take magnesium is take it enough to where you're getting 5 times your body weight in milligrams, but don't take so much that you have raging diarrhea. And so a lot of times those two can sometimes take a while to not happen. So, sometimes you work your way up to 5 times your body weight in milligrams over time, or you're just going to have loose stools. But I usually recommend separating your dosage, so cut it in half and take some in the morning and some in the evening. That's a great way to do it. But you can really take it however you want to. I mean, there's no wrong way to take magnesium. Good morning. 'Tis the season. Thoughts on elderberry? I like it. I think it can really support the immune system. I don't think it's some magical pill. However, I have been known to, when I feel a cold or something worse coming on, to go to the nearest health food store, buy a bottle of elderberry and drink the whole thing down throughout the day. So I like elderberry. I think it really is very immune supportive. But I do have a belief about sickness that if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not really nourishing ourselves, whether that's, nutritionally or otherwise, like giving our body what it needs, we will get sick because it's almost like a forced slowdown. Our body's saying, hey, step on the brakes, step on the brakes, step on the brakes. And if we do not acknowledge that and we think like, oh, I'm going to take some elderberry and keep, forging ahead in my life, it's not going to work out. So I usually say the first signs of getting sick, that is your body putting the brakes on. And if you choose to not listen, you usually will become sick. Went off birth control after 10 years, and I'm actually having a bit of period this month. Woo! Been implementing Fully Nourished for about 4 months. I'm so stoked. That's so exciting. Yay! It can take some time, but I mean, compared to 10 years, 4 months is actually quite soon. So that's really incredible. You should be very proud of yourself because that's all your hard work. I'm sorry there's going to be construction going on in the background possibly, and the dogs will bark at some point, so I apologize. They are obnoxious. Mucus in stool, causes or fixes. Usually there's a reason. A lot of times there's excessive amounts of mucus forming bacteria, but you always want to get that ran by a doctor just to make sure there's nothing else wrong. Usually it should be accompanied by other symptoms, like you're having a hard time. But sometimes mucus can really be things are moving and changing in the microbiome as well. Sometimes when people are doing, gut programs or gut protocols, or they're working on their gut health, they'll find an excessive amount of mucus passing for a little while, and it's because things are kind of clearing out. So it just kind of depends. It can be like just a reaction to changing the diet, but it can also be something that's off. So and you want to pay attention to what you're eating. Like if you're eating things that are really irritating to the gut, or taking a supplement that's pretty irritating, that could be causing it as well. I was asking, is it possible that only 6 hours of sleep would be enough if I woke up and felt energized, or is it cortisol related, like I start to eat myself? I love how you say that, like I start to eat myself. That's what's happening, but I love when people are saying it in straight terms. It can be either. Some people do okay on less sleep. That is sometimes the case. As long as you're waking up feeling refreshed and energized and restored, and you're not getting tired around like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., that afternoon slump. So if you truly feel like you're mentally clear throughout the day, able to focus, you don't feel kind of foggy and tired, like you can't focus or carry a conversation well or anything like that, that's usually the first sign that somebody didn't get good sleep, is you can't focus and you kind of have a hard time like carrying a conversation, and you don't really care about what anyone's saying. You just want to go take a nap. But if you truly feel refreshed and restored and energized, that you might just be good with about 6 hours of really good sleep. What brand of aspirin do you recommend, and how much would I take? I don't recommend brands. I'm not a doctor, and I can't tell you how much you should take. That's something that you need to research on your own. I personally take Jerrycare aspirin, and will take a half of a 325 milligram tablet. Sometimes I'll take a whole one, like when I'm on my period or something like that. But that's personally what I take. Thoughts on elderberry. In addition to antioxidants, I've read about reduced inflammation, and I'm curious about the actual effect on the body. Oh, well, I kind of already answered like for cold and flu season, but it does create a more active immune system. I'm not a fan of taking immune boosters like that long term. I would more, if you're going to do something long term, like more preventative, like you want to keep your immune system high all winter long, that would be more mushrooms are going to be my favorite, like cordyceps or things like that. Elderberry should only be taken when you truly feel like you're coming down, or it can actually lead to having an overactive immune system. Got a cold straight after getting a travel vax. Should I support my body in a special way? I wouldn't say they're necessarily related unless you think they're related, but I would just, do what you normally do, and, if eat well, take care of yourself. And sometimes the stress of getting ready for travel is what's going to sometimes do you in. And so just, keep an eye on your body, but I wouldn't stress too much about it. I want your shirt. Oh, thank you. I had some kind of norovirus-related stomach issues, and for next 2 weeks, I only feel like eating fruit and potatoes. Barely got any protein in. Any tips to support body? I wouldn't really stress about it. When you're not feeling good and you're kind of feeling ill, you got to really listen to your body. Your body is the one that's in charge there. And, protein is harder to digest. Protein feeds pathogens in some cases. And so when your immune system's trying to fight something, there's a reason why you're only craving carbohydrates, because your body doesn't want to feed pathogens, especially ammonia producing bacteria. So I wouldn't stress about things like that. Like, when you are sick, the first thing you do is listen to your body. That's how you support your body. But things like vitamin C and eating really well and getting plenty of sleep, not over exercising, sweating, things like that can be helpful for when you're sick, taking extra care of yourself. But, don't stress about the food. Like when you're sick, it's not like, the goal is not like, oh, you need to eat protein, carb, and fat every couple of hours. It's more like I need to just take care of myself, how my body's telling me to take care of myself. What are your Thanksgiving plans? What are you cooking? I'm the kind of person that I don't really think about it yet, but I'll probably cook like a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. Probably like a free range organic turkey you can order from the health food store. I got to get on that. And then I'll probably do like a few sides. I'm kind of feeling this year like doing some cranberries. So I'll probably get some organic cranberries and like make a jelly with just, regular old organic cane sugar and maybe some orange peels. I'll probably just roast sweet potatoes. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll scrub the outsides, poke a hole with a fork, put them in like a baking dish, and then like throw some marshmallows on top to kind of let them, melt on top and get kind of crispy. I'll probably do some type of vegetable, maybe, and then do some just regular old mashed potatoes. I don't know if I want to tackle stuffing this year. I usually like to make a homemade stuffing, or I'll buy like a gluten-free mix and use high quality ingredients, but I don't know if I'm feeling it. It's kind of a hassle. But yeah, I'm the cook in my family, like including, I'll probably be with my parents. So, even out of them, I'm still the cook. So I'll probably cook something up, but I tend to make it pretty laid back and only choose a few sides, because I just find you end up having like so many leftovers, or food will go to waste. And so like I just choose everyone's favorite sides, 3 or 4, and then probably, last year I made a pie, but I probably at this time, we have like a nice little local health food store. It's not like a Whole Foods, and they have like this beautiful like gluten-free bakery. And so I'll probably get a pie from them. They do pumpkin and apple. But to me, like enjoying Thanksgiving Day and spending time with family is so much more important than like being in the kitchen all day. So I try to prep everything the night before that I can, so that, when the morning comes around, I just slather the turkey in butter, put it in a dish, and let it start cooking, and then everything just needs to kind of be assembled. And it's pretty much already, the hard stuff is done. The vegetables are chopped, like everything's kind of ready to go. So it just makes Thanksgiving Day a little bit less stressful and less of an event. Can't wait to work with you those weeks, my pulses and pressure has improved. That's so good. Pulses and temperature take some time to improve, but if you're seeing immediate improvements, that's amazing, because that is a sign that you are getting the improvements that you're looking for. Can't wait to ovulate after 2 years, but I'm feeling hopeful now with your advice. Yeah, that's something exciting to look forward to. It really is. I don't have access to milk of magnesia, next best alternative. I'm wondering if you have access to like a magnesium bicarbonate powder. If not, you can always just buy a magnesium supplement like glycinate or malate or something like that. Just look for a high quality magnesium supplement. Or you can always alternatively make yourself a magnesium broth, which is just greens that are brought to a boil and then simmered for about 3 to 4 hours. And then you just strain the greens off and drink the broth. That's really rich in magnesium. Jess been doing fruit fasting for a few days and feeling so good. Temps have been super low though and getting lower. Probably going to do this for one more day or so. Hands are looking a lot better. Yeah, so if your pulses and temps are getting lower, then that's probably a sign that you're feeling good because of stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline, they do give you a false sense of energy, and they make you feel kind of less inflamed even though they are immunosuppressive. So it's probably a good idea to go back to eating protein, carb, and fat and doing it the old-fashioned way, and using it as like it was a really good reset, but now it's time to get back to eating protein, carb, and fat and just hanging in there. I know it can be really tough when you're trying to heal your metabolism, but think of it this way: if you've yo-yo dieted or manipulated the body for so long, it does take time for the body to finally register that it's safe, and it can sometimes take months, like 6 months, for the body to be like, oh, I am safe. And this is especially true in developing women, which is why it hurts me when, girls start to experiment with diets very early on nowadays. And they are usually over-exercising. They're athletes, or they're doing way too much exercise. They're running, God forbid. Ugh, the worst type of exercise. And so what happens is, while they're developing, while their body needs an excess to grow and continue to develop in the proper way, they're in a complete deficit. And so their body's having to compensate and choose and prioritize the things that are most important. And remember, women don't really stop developing until we're really around 23, 24, 25. And so that can be really, if we start yo-yo dieting when we're 16, we still have about 8 years of development to go. And so, that can really be very devastating. So just keep in mind, usually younger women tend to go in a stress response more than a little bit older women that have already completely fully developed. And so it can take some time to really tell the body, hey, you're safe. Is fruit fine on its own, or should it be eaten in a meal with protein and fat? I think that's really based on the individual. Some people do fine with fruit on its own. Some people don't, and they need to combine it. I find that fruit really makes me very hungry, an hour after I eat it, which is awesome. It's revving my metabolism. So I do like to eat it on its own, right when I wake up. So in the morning, I don't really feel like a very heavy meal. So I'll have a big bowl of fruit or a big glass of fruit juice. And then by 30 minutes later or an hour later, I'm ready for breakfast. And so I use it as a way to rev my appetite up. So I usually will snack on it alone from time to time, but sometimes I will combine it with a meal. So I think that's really just a personal, what personally you feel like. What do you feel about the supplement DIM? I think it is so dangerous, and women that take it usually are causing huge problems that they're not recognizing. I don't think it should be taken by anyone, ever. But keep in mind that it helps with phase 1 of detoxification in the liver. So your liver goes through, technically 3, but 2 main phases of detoxification. And so, hormones are broken down through phase 1, and then they go through phase 2 to be methylated and then completely carried out of the body. And so when you're speeding up phase 1, which DIM helps with phase 1, but you don't have the nutrients to take those metabolites through phase 2, you are causing way bigger problems. And those metabolites are going right back into the bloodstream. And so this is why very often women on DIM experience hair loss, or they feel like they're going crazy, and they see that their hormones are almost getting worse and not better. And it's because this compound, I just don't like it. I don't think it's an effective way to support detoxification. And, there are so many other things needed for estrogen detox. Your gut needs to be working well. You need to have plenty of calories and nutrients. You need to have plenty of protein, 100 grams a day of bioavailable protein. You need plenty of carbohydrates. 150 grams needs to be in the liver at all points of time. You need saturated fats. You need an excessive amount of B vitamins. You need copper. You need magnesium. You need zinc. You need selenium. You need vitamin E, you need vitamin A, and so all of those components need to be focused on first. And if we take a supplement that supposedly pushes detox, but our liver doesn't have the fundamental things it needs to detoxify, what are we doing? we're doing something that is probably going to be negative and not a positive. So all of these weird compounds and things like that, I'm just not a fan of. We've got to focus on the fundamentals first. And then if you've gotten your minerals balanced and you've gotten all the nutrition that you could possibly need and you're still not seeing results, which is like probably not going to happen because it just doesn't, then I guess you could consider DIM. But you're at that point, you're going to be like, DIM? What's DIM? You know, like, you don't need those things. Best way to get over the flu. Sometimes, like, once you get the flu, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you kind of just gotta wait it out, and I will usually sweat it out. So I haven't gotten the flu in like 3 years, but I'll usually like take an Epsom salt bath every single day. I really like something called Dr. Shinga's mustard bath. You can buy it on Amazon. It's amazing because when you add it to your bath, you're just like sweating like crazy. I will do lots of liquids like bone broth, coconut water, fruit juices, and then I'll like listen to my body. If something sounds good, I will eat it, but a lot of times nothing sounds good, so I'm just doing lots of liquids that are mineral dense, not water, mineral dense liquids. And then I just kind of like wait it out. A lot of times you don't feel like eating or taking anything, so it's kind of one of those things where it just needs to be waited out. But sweating does help. And then I will take activated charcoal twice a day to kind of absorb any possible bacteria or endotoxins that are occurring. Hi Jessica, can you tell why whey protein is bad? Don't know how to explain to my brother. Sometimes, you guys, we don't want to be evangelists about our health and nutrition. Some people need to figure things out on their own. So we need to know before we approach something, if it's going to be an argument or you're trying to arrogantly push your ideas on someone and they're not asking for something, unfortunately, as hard as it is, we need to zip our lips. Because when you try to push your idea onto someone and they're not asking about it, when was the last time you were receptive to somebody like telling you what you're doing is wrong? You know what I mean? So that's just my first advice. That's the approach I take to health. People probably think that I talk about health all the time, but I actually don't talk about health with anyone unless they ask me a specific question. And I have no judgment attitude towards what people's habits are because everyone is at their own point and journey in their life. I'm not like, oh, I am a health goddess, you know, like, and everyone in my vicinity shall know. You know, it's like, I don't say a word. And it makes relationships in your life so much easier. And it allows you to talk about other things besides health. But if your brother is truly asking and is inquisitive about why whey is bad, whey is not bad, but improperly processed whey is usually pretty high in heavy metals. So you want to be buying high quality whey so you're not contaminating your body with heavy metals. The second thing is whey is very rich in an amino acid called L-tryptophan. And L-tryptophan turns into a neurotransmitter or is a precursor to a neurotransmitter called serotonin. And it can really mess with the digestive tract and cause inflammation and then sometimes mood issues with a lot of people, like depression or anxiety or feeling kind of like, low motivation. And so it is important to pay attention to how the person is feeling and how their gut health is. Some people do fine on a daily protein powder of whey, but a lot of times when you're taking that day after day after day, sometimes multiple times a day, you'll start to see problems and issues arise and you never think like, oh, it's the whey. So it's just important to kind of keep an eye out as to how your health is doing while you're consuming whey. But like I said, if someone's not asking you, don't force it. Can insulin resistance be reversed? Little advice on how to do that. Yeah, of course. I mean, insulin resistance has everything to do with the cell itself. Remember, when insulin is a hormone that acts like a key to allow glucose within the cell. Our goal is to be as sensitive to insulin as possible, so our pancreas has to secrete the least amount of insulin into our bloodstream, and our cells are really responsive to it. Allow that fuel in right away. Glucose is the fuel. Insulin resistance is driven by free fatty acids. So the first thing we need to do is get our stress levels down. How do we do that? We need to eat frequently, every 3 hours, something small that's protein, carb, and fat. Why? Because if we go too long without eating, our body starts to pull free fatty acids from the fat cells into the bloodstream. And when free fatty acids are in the bloodstream, our cells are less sensitive to glucose and will intake the free fatty acids instead. This is a very inflammatory process, and we don't want that to happen. Another thing we need to keep an eye on is our estrogen levels in relationship to progesterone. Estrogen dominance or estrogen excess absolutely drives insulin resistance. Hypothyroidism, whether that's cellular or blatant hypothyroidism, also drives insulin resistance. Magnesium deficiency will drive insulin resistance. So it's one of those things that we really have to stop focusing on insulin resistance and start focusing on the health of our cells themselves. And we need to always lay the foundation first. Eat nutrient-dense foods frequently, keeping our blood sugar balanced, making sure we're getting our protein from the right sources, our fats from the right sources, our carbohydrates from the right sources to mitigate a small insulin response, which is why I'm always encouraging fruits and roots, staying away from grains, starches, and beans, because those are going to cause a secretion of more insulin. Making sure our fats are saturated, as polyunsaturated fats make us more insulin resistant. So canola oil, soybean oil, grapeseed oil, any seed or nut oil is going to make us more insulin resistant and less sensitive to glucose. We need to make sure we're sleeping. We need to make sure we're doing the right types of exercise. High amounts of cardio is going to drive stress and insulin resistance, whereas strength training actually allows our muscles to uptake those free fatty acids, get them out of the bloodstream so that all of our other cells can be more responsive to insulin. We got to make sure we're getting plenty of sunlight, as light makes us less insulin resistant or more insulin sensitive. And we've got to make sure we're managing our stress levels. So this is what I teach in Fully Nourished, my online course, because the worst fix for insulin resistance is cutting sugar because sugar is not the driver of insulin resistance in the first place. In reality, when we're insulin resistant, we're having a hard time getting glucose into the cells. So in reality, we're kind of starving in a sense. Our cells are starving for glucose and energy. And to cut glucose out of the diet, it might help with a few symptoms at first because we're lowering insulin because we're not eating sugar. But in reality, what begins to happen is now our cells are really starved for energy and our stress response goes up and we begin to see an unraveling of our health over time. We take a cat which is blind because his last owner was vegan and didn't feed the cat meat. What? That is so cruel. So he lost his eyesight. He was so depleted of taurine, just proved something wrong with his diet. That is so sad. Yeah, guys, cats are carnivores. Dogs are carnivores. They need the amino acids found in meats, and they will die or get very, very sick a lot quicker than humans will. Now, remember, humans also get sick. It's just not as blatant, but it does happen. I tried a month without progesterone cream and had a bad period and felt really depressed. Can I do anything to promote ovulation, or is it just time? I don't know what the question is. Like, is it just time to stop progesterone? Is it just time to... I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what the question is. But yeah, I mean, when we don't have enough progesterone, we'll feel depression, anxiety. We'll have really bad periods, heavy, clotty, crampy, because they are excessive estrogen is going to drive that second half of the cycle. Hi, Jessica. Thoughts on Weston Price diet and philosophy? I think there are certain things that he's absolutely on point about. Vitamin A is very important. Specific fats are very important. Animal protein is absolutely essential to the human condition. But there are a few things that I would disagree on. The essential fatty acid idea is actually kind of based on some shoddy science. But I think it's important to get some omega-3s from your diet, but no, you don't need to supplement it excessively. And then he is very low carb, high fat, which I don't think is the optimal way to eat. And I've seen a lot of people slowly disintegrate over time on that style of eating, myself included. So the nutrients themselves and a lot of his philosophies are on point for sure, but there are certain things that I just don't agree with, because when we're looking at humans, unfortunately, we live in a very different environment than our ancestors did even, 5,000 years ago. And so we have to understand that their only stressors was, survival, make sure they eat enough, make sure they reproduce, and they had very low stress lifestyles. They didn't have EMFs. They didn't have electricity all around them and doing dirty electricity. They didn't have exhaust and pollution. They didn't have dirty air, dirty food, dirty water, dirty soil. I could go on and on and on. Chemicals, plastics. We are exposed to more stress in one day than our ancestors were their whole life. And so we have to eat in a way that makes us more resilient to stress, and that's going to look very different than our primal ancestors. Now, of course, we can take a lot of ideas from them and make sure we're getting the nutrients needed to survive, like vitamin A and animal proteins and whole animal eating. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're very resilient to stress. And what's the thing that makes us resilient to stress? Sugar or carbohydrate. What are your thoughts on high oxalate foods? Do the oxalates affect thyroid, joints, etc.? Yeah, I don't really like vegetables at all for so many reasons. Like oxalates are one of them. Phytates are another. I find that a lot of people have a hard time breaking them down, and so they do end up causing symptoms. Now, it's really about how much of them you're eating. If you're eating them all the time, and a lot of people are eating, throwing spinach in their smoothies and constantly eating oxalate-rich foods, which is driving a lot of their issues. So anything that's really rich in lectins or oxalates is going to be a problem, which is why I always encourage people to get most of their nutrition from roots and fruits and squashes that have the skin peeled and the seeds scraped. I usually will recommend no plant fats, only animal fats or coconut oil, and grass-fed meats and eggs and milk and dairy. Animals take those foods that are really rich in oxalates and lectins and phytates, and they break them down into nutrients that are packed into their tissue, and you eat their tissue and you get all of the nutrients that came from the thousands and thousands of pounds of plant material they ate, yet you don't have to digest thousands and thousands of pounds of plant material. That is why animals are healing. And so, anyone that denies that fact is just, blatantly disregarding biology. So that's just kind of how I see it. When you're trying to heal, staying away from all of the anti-nutrients in plants for the most part, not saying like completely avoiding them, usually is pretty dang healing. Also, can't wait for you to take clients. I want to work with you. Yeah, I can't wait either. I can't wait to, there's so many new people that want to work with me, and I can't wait. Tried bioidentical progesterone cream last month from day 14 to 28 and no period has come. Next month I will try the Ona's oil. Maybe this will work. I know I'm low in progesterone, so it can only help. Yeah, sometimes, we're in such a state of dysregulation that progesterone's not enough to bring the period. There's other stressors going on, and so progesterone is helping with inflammation, and it's helping with thyroid function, and it's lowering stress. But at the same time, it's not enough to bring back a period. But don't lose hope. It can just sometimes take some time. Do we need to do FN before being able to work with you? Yeah, it's actually going to be a required prerequisite at the beginning of the year, just because for me, our time is best spent together digging deeper, and I've already put so much time and effort and work into explaining the fundamentals of health to you in Fully Nourished. And so for the sake of saving time and saving money and energy, because I couldn't possibly go over what's in Fully Nourished in even like 5 or 6 sessions with someone, I really want them to have the foundation laid before we even start working together, because I want to be, okay, now you've implemented what's in Fully Nourished, now let's dial it in, let's tweak it down, let's get the right minerals in, let's start mineral balancing, let's start tweaking everything and making it unique to you. And so when clients don't take Fully Nourished first, they tend to not get as good of a success outcome. And I want them to have the fundamentals down before we even speak, not because I'm being a jerk, but because I truly think that it helps them succeed, or helps you succeed 10 times quicker. What did you eat today? Just trying to find inspiration. I'm so bored with my food. Want to see what else to try. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think Instagram culture has really made us feel like every single meal needs to be different and our food needs to be really exotic, and, we need to eat like 25 different things throughout the week. And if we have that mentality, we're going to really just fail, and we're going to fail hardcore. It's really important to find foods that you truly love and are completely satisfying over and over again, which is why I don't think plant-based diets are really that sustainable, because you're constantly trying to make food into something that it's not. For me, I eat very simply. Every morning I have pasture-raised eggs with some type of saturated fat like ghee or grass-fed butter. Today I actually took some raw milk, warmed it up on the stove in a saucepan, got it really warm, and then cracked my eggs into it and whisked it to make kind of a thick eggnog type drink. And then I put in some coconut sugar and just drank that. It's a really thick, milky, almost like an eggnog. I actually got that idea from Marilyn Monroe. That was her breakfast every single morning. And I decided to try it today, and I was like, oh, that's actually really delicious and very easy and soothing and satisfying. So that's what I ate today. But I eat very simply. I'm not an exciting eater. I'm good with very simple foods that are very nourishing. I do lots of grass-fed butter, lots of ghee, lots of coconut oil. I do lots of root vegetables, whether that's cassava, parsnip, yucca, sweet potatoes, yams, potatoes. I do squashes like butternut squash and spaghetti squash and kabaka squash. I'm roasting them most of the time. I do lots of stewed meats, so it'll be chicken or a roast stewed in broth to make sure it's easy to break down. Do lots of shellfish like scallops and shrimp very often with stewed fruits. I'm very simple, just because I don't have the time to be complicated, and for me nourishment is about feeling really good and being able to continue forward in my direction and purpose. And I do lots of juices. I drink lots of milk, chocolate milk. I am just trying to get nutrient dense foods that are quick and easy, really. How did you learn so much? Any good reads or books you suggest? I love watching your lives and stories on here. Oh, I appreciate it. Most of my knowledge comes from personal research. I do a lot of research. I read just a ton of research articles, and it's not something that I could point you and be read this research article. I've read thousands. I have dug very deeply into Ray Peat's work, which is someone that I do recommend if you're trying to dig a little deeper, understand hormones. Let's see, what other books? Broda Barnes' work is really good, Hypothyroidism, the Unsuspected Illness. Morley Robbins' mineral balancing work is very, very powerful. I'm trying to think of what else. I've done a little bit of digging into Dr. Lawrence Wilson's research. I'm trying to think of who else. But yeah, I get my research from everywhere. When for example, I'm listening to a podcast, let's say yesterday I was listening to a podcast with Morley Robbins, and then he recommended a man named Robert Thompson. And so I literally spent all day yesterday researching Robert Thompson's work. So it's just one of those things, when somebody mentions something, you don't just brush over it. They're mentioning someone that literally has spent their whole life's work on one specific subject. And so if you're really interested in one specific subject and you want to know how that relates to what your research is, you need to now go down that rabbit hole and learn about that whole rabbit hole. And so that's what I do. When somebody mentions someone in passing, you don't like brush over it and say like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, you need to go dig into their work. And sometimes I'll spend months digging into one person's work. And I have enough understanding of the human body based in, you know, the classes I've taken, you know, biology, biochemistry, to know what I'm going to accept and what I'm going to say, let's put a Post-it note on that, or absolutely not. Like, that's not a part of the research that I will accept. So, you know, you have to use discernment as well. It's not like everything that everyone says is Bible, you know, like you have to really have a discerning mind when you're reading through research and really trusting your gut. And then it comes with experience as well. I mean, I've worked with hundreds and really, I mean, I guess thousands now of women who have problems, and I've seen what clearly works and what doesn't work just by when they come to me and we go over what they've done or what they're on, and I see their physiology and I say, wow, like whatever they're doing is making this 10 times worse, or whatever they're doing, like they need to stop now, you know. And so that allows me to apply that experience to my research and see things through a different lens, because research is one thing, but when you actually start to see it in people, it becomes a whole different animal. You know, all these people are like, well, the research says, and I'm like, I couldn't give two shits if somebody is suffering. I don't care. I'm not going to be like, well, the research study said that the supplement you're taking is supposed to help you. Like, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, you know what? Maybe the research that I read is wrong. Let's dig deeper. And that takes you having to lay down your ego and constantly admit that you could possibly be wrong. Or you could possibly say like, wow, something that I thought before might not be correct. And that really does take a lot of humility. Part of the reason why I learned so much is because I'm constantly shifting my perspective. As I learn more, I'm saying, oh, I was wrong. Okay, let's move on. Oh, I was wrong. Let's keep going. A lot of practitioners are not willing to do that. They're going to say my way or the highway. Like, I learned it this way, and so this is what it is. And it ends up biting them in the butt, really. So usually when you go into research, you go in with an open mind, with discernment, and you want some sound foundation. But I do recommend Ray Peat's work. Who else? Matt Stone's work is actually really good, 180 Degree Health. I like Amplified Vitality on YouTube. He's really good. But yeah, I would start there. Fave brand of magnesium glycinate is now brand okay. You don't want a lot of actives or excipients in your magnesium. I really like pure encapsulations is really good. Doctor's Best is actually okay. Let's see. Vital Nutrients Triple Mag is good. It has oxide in it, but it's pretty good. What else? Wake Up Maggie is another supplement that I like. I'm trying to think. And then like Epsom salt baths are a great way to get magnesium. Life Flow magnesium oil is my favorite magnesium oil. Why is running not ideal for women, even a short run? Okay, so, you know, you don't run just for fun. Your brain doesn't think that. Your brain's not like, oh, you're running for exercise. I'll turn off now. That's fine. You are running from something. And if you are looking for a sure way to kick your body into fight or flight response in a second, start running. And this is why when you look at runners, they look incredibly sickly. When I say sickly, I mean very lean. They have very little muscle. And I know we think like lean equals health. No. That's a sickly, estrogen, stressed lean. You're eating through your muscle tissue. This is why when you run long distances, you start to literally crap your pants, because your serotonin and your estrogen is so high that you're starting to literally move things through your bowels at unhealthy, rapid paces. Running is just, you're literally turning on a survival state right away, because your body registers that you're running from something. And so when you're running from something, nothing matters except for your survival in that moment. Your future is now not a priority. And so your body will eat through anything to keep you alive in that moment, keep your cortisol levels high, keep your immune system suppressed, your metabolism suppressed. This is why runners have very, very low pulses and very, very low temperatures, because their body is in a constant state of survival, and so it has to conserve as much energy as possible at all times, because it's going to constantly be in a state of stress. Running is a sure way to destroy your body. Right, running is for chasing your food or running away from it. Yes, sprints are another thing. Like if you sprint for 30 seconds, like you just chased a rabbit. Ooh, there you go. But like, who wants to like do that? And all serious running to feel good, but only for long, and definitely have to make sure you're fueling. Yeah, if you run to feel good, you have problems. Like you need your dopamine, your oxytocin. The reason why you feel so good after a run is not the endorphins, it's the cortisol and the adrenaline. And then you crash, and now your body's like worse off than it was before. So I'm not a big fan of running. I don't think it's a good idea for most women. Unfortunately, we're not resilient to stress. I mean, it's not good for men either. I mean, you look at male runners and they have like man boobies. It's for a reason. But it's definitely not a good pastime for women. And I just follow so many runners on Instagram that I watch them run. I'm like, oh, just wait. I feel bad, but like I'm waiting for their health to decline. And so many of them over the like years have said, oh man, I'm having so many health issues. And I'm like, I could fix your health issues in about 5 seconds. Stop running, So it really is unfortunate. It's not a good exercise choice. Is MSM a good universal supplement? How much would you recommend a day? I have PCOS. I'm not a big fan of it. MSM is like a synthetic precursor to sulfur. It can be helpful in certain cases to help with like some heavy metal elimination, but it's definitely not my first choice. Like it's not going to do someone much good if they have other issues going on. Suggestions for air quality other than humidifiers, a HEPA filter like the Air Doctor or something like that. A HEPA filter that expels negative ions is awesome, that kills bacteria on surfaces is awesome. So the Air Doctor is a really good option. But yeah, a good HEPA filter is an awesome way to clean air quality. What other supplements would be good for liver detox? Usually taurine's really good, but brewer's yeast is a great unfortified brewer's yeast that's grown on non-GMO beets, I should say. I know we live in a crazy world where we have to like specify what is used in the processing, but like Bluebonnet brewer's yeast is really awesome because it's very rich in B vitamins. Beef liver, awesome. Vitamin A rich foods like egg yolks and high quality dairy and liver is an awesome way to support the liver. And then getting enough protein, getting enough carbs, getting enough fat, like nourishing yourself fundamentally is always first when it comes to liver health. 9 times out of 10 people's detoxification is sucky because they're starving, and your body's not going to detox and get junk out of you if it's just focusing on living in the here and now and in a survival state. You talked about DIM. Is it safe to take when it's taken with supplements? No. I mean, everything that I said about DIM, everything I said about DIM still applies. Do you mean like if it's mixed in with a supplement? Still not a fan. I don't think it's a safe compound, and I get really angry when functional medicine doctors just like slap it on people like, oh, you're having a hard time detoxing estrogen? Here's DIM. I've seen really severe problems occur because of DIM, and it doesn't just go away when you stop taking it. Like sometimes they linger for months and months and months. So like when I say I get angry and I say it's dangerous, like I mean it's dangerous. And I've seen more problems arise than good arise from supplementing it. And I should preface it by saying, unless you know what your metabolites are, there are some people that DIM really does work very well for them. I'm not going to say it doesn't. I'm going to say that you need to know, where your metabolites are, and it should be taken in a very specific way for a specific period of time. It's not great for everyone, and it definitely shouldn't just be taken if you haven't gotten any tests done. I should say that because there's no universal for every supplement, and a lot of times there are people that might do really well with DIM, but a lot of times because it can cause problems with so many people, I just kind of steer clear of it unless I know that the person is going to do okay with it. How do we know if we are vitamin A or vitamin E deficient? A vitamin A test can be done, a blood test can be done. Vitamin E, you can get vitamin E tested, but it's hard to kind of test if it's deficient. I mean, unless you eat a lot of vitamin E rich foods, which is mostly just nuts and seeds, which you can't really extract a lot of vitamin E from them. You're not going to really have a lot of vitamin E. A lot of us are, what I'm trying to say is a lot of us are vitamin E deficient or depleted. But vitamin A and vitamin E work together. So usually if we're deficient in vitamin A, we're probably deficient in vitamin E as well. Best way to supplement them, we can get them from nutrient-dense foods. So like vitamin A comes from liver. The best way to get it is by eating fresh liver. Unfortunately, desiccated liver does not provide vitamin A. It provides B vitamins, zinc, copper, those types of things, but it doesn't provide vitamin A. Vitamin A is destroyed when processing liver, so fresh liver. And then small amounts of vitamin A is like in egg yolks and ghee and grass-fed butter, and high quality dairy. And then a lot of people will say taking cod liver oil. I'm not a huge fan of cod liver oil, but I will sometimes take vitamin A from derived from halibut liver oil, so that's always an option. And then when it comes to vitamin E, I like to take a vitamin E supplement that's a whole foods vitamin E supplement, or doing red palm oil, is as long as it's sustainably sourced, is a good source of vitamin E as well. And then cocoa butter is really rich in vitamin A and vitamin E. Thoughts coming off chronic spironolactone use. You want to monitor your potassium levels, just because spironolactone is a potassium sparing diuretic, and so once you go off of it, a lot of times you'll lose a lot of potassium and your sodium levels might go up. And then you want to keep an eye on those aldosterone levels, because spironolactone is going to lower aldosterone, and so a lot of times it will shoot back up. So the biggest thing, watch aldosterone, and then watch your sodium and potassium levels. Does high calcium and HTMA always indicate calcium shell? What's first step to bring calcium down? If it's completely elevated and like off the charts, then yes. If it's just elevated and not completely elevated, then not always. But elevated calcium always slows down the metabolism. The first step is getting magnesium supplies in order, so always supplementing magnesium, and then vitamin K2, MK7 form, will allow that calcium to get where it needs to go into the bones and the teeth. And then making sure someone's not iodine deficient, because if someone's iodine deficient, then they don't have that mineral that's necessary to decalcify the tissues. And so iodine is very important for decalcifying the body. Best advice for coming off of chronic spironolactone. Oh, I just already said that. Only had the flu twice in 6th grade, got horribly sick for like 2 weeks, and then like 9 years later when I got the flu shot because my mother-in-law pushed me to, 8 months later got Guillain-Barré. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing with everyone. Have you talked about spironolactone in your story highlights already? I need to come off, but I'm scared of acne coming back. I haven't really talked a ton about spironolactone. I will do something on spironolactone. I've been getting so many questions on it, for real. So I will do a story on it. I gotta just write it down so I don't forget. Because it really does deserve its own story, and it really is a symptom suppressing drug. It's not a bad drug. It's just a potassium sparing diuretic. And so it doesn't actually lower testosterone, it lowers aldosterone, and it lowers stress. And a lot of people don't recognize that when you're taking a drug that lowers stress and you're seeing positive results from it, that's a sign you got a lot of stress. So it doesn't fix anything, but it can definitely help us feel better and see our symptoms improve. And so getting to the root of what was driving that stress in the first place is obviously the answer. So I'll do a story on that. Hi, beautiful. Could really bad hormone imbalance drop and increase cause people to wake up at night feeling really sick? Yeah, a lot of times they are experiencing low blood sugar and need to eat something. But yeah, it definitely could. I'm wondering if it's a high histamine issue. Histamines require copper to be broken down properly. A lot of people are copper deficient, or they have copper dysregulation, meaning they have lots of non-bioavailable copper in the tissues, but they don't have a lot of good copper in their cells, so they're copper deficient and copper toxic at the same time, which is considered copper dysregulation. Keep in mind there are 3 things we need to break down histamine: vitamin B6, copper, and magnesium. All 3 things that we're mostly usually deficient in. So that sounds like it could be histamine, could be a lot of inflammation, but it could also be a low blood sugar issue. So I would evaluate those things. But yeah, hormones definitely affect how we feel. And if we have really bad hormone imbalances, then we can definitely feel off. But I would say feeling sick all the time is probably something a little more like maybe immunity, or do you have an autoimmune condition? Do you have really bad food allergies or histamine issues? How optimal or not do you find gluten-free oats? I think it just depends on the person. I can't say that they're good or bad. Some of my clients do awesome on them and it's like a non-issue, and some women like literally can't digest them at all, or they cause severe inflammation. So it just really depends. I do recommend oats be sprouted, gluten-free, and organic. Why organic? Because oats are very heavily sprayed in pesticides. And if you're eating non-organic oats, you're eating pesticide soup. Do you think dairy products such as yogurt and kefir are beneficial? They're really high in lactic acid, which for someone that has thyroid issues or things like that can actually cause more problems than less. So I actually prefer things like cottage cheese, ricotta, cheeses like mozzarella and Swiss, hard cheeses like Parmesan and cheddar, high quality like milk, and sometimes yogurt, depending on the person if they do really good on it or not. Is it possible to fix estrogen going down the wrong pathway or turning it into testosterone? May I ask how to fix it? Support the body. A lot of times this happens when inflammation is high, when the liver is really, really burdened and not working very well, or when we are very deficient in things like magnesium and B vitamins. So it's very important to nourish ourselves first and foremost, get the right minerals and nutrients in, and lower inflammation in the body, which a lot of times is helped by just getting the right types of nourishment and getting our minerals balanced. How to rebuild the gut and vaginal flora after antibiotics when fermented foods and sauerkraut aren't good for us? What's your opinion on vaginal suppositories with probiotics? We need to understand, you guys, that we don't have the power to restore a microbiome. Bacteria, there are trillions of bacteria both in the vagina and the gut. You didn't kill all of them, I promise, unless you took like straight up IV antibiotics for a year straight. So it's very important to understand that we don't have the power to do that. And, a supplemental form of bacteria is so different than what is found native in our digestive tract. So we need to chill the F out the probiotics. I will do sometimes like if someone, like for example, if I get a yeast infection or somebody's getting a yeast infection, sometimes soaking a natural tampon that's not bleached, in kefir can be helpful. High quality kefir can be helpful, and then I will insert it. It's like when I feel yeasty or like I'm getting a yeast infection. It can help get some good bacteria in the vagina, but you don't want to go overboard on it because then it can cause a further imbalance. So it's very important to be very careful and to be very conservative. When it comes to the gut microbiome, what we eat, the prebiotics, is going to completely affect our microbiome. Prebiotics are where it's at. Probiotics are really not that important. So we want to eat the foods that feed specific bacteria. When we're eating tons of greens, when we're eating tons of cruciferous vegetables, when we're eating tons of beans and improperly prepared grains, those are fermentable fibers. They feed everything. Everything in your gut, including the bad pathogens, are going to feed on those foods. When you eat very specific prebiotics, which is always why I'm constantly, literally regurgitating and vomiting the word roots and fruits, it's for a specific reason, because those prebiotics in those foods feed only good bacteria. Apple pectin, for example, only feeds good bacteria that create butyric acid. Specific prebiotics like Triphala. I really like Just Thrive's prebiotic. Prebiotics are actually how we get our probiotics or good bacteria to grow back. When we take antibiotics, it only wipes out about a third of our microbiome, and that creates space. And keep in mind that every single bacteria and yeast in your gut is opportunistic. When it sees space, it wants to take up that space and grow as quickly as possible. And so you want to give the food to the bacteria that you want around. I hope that makes sense. What kind of fats would you recommend for snacks if not seeds and nuts? I do lots of dairy, like string cheese or cottage cheese, things like that. I do like coconut oil, fat bombs with honey. I do lots of chocolate. I don't really obsess too much about the fats. Usually there's natural amounts of fats in my food. I'll do macadamia nuts from time to time because they have a lot of, they're higher in good fats than something like almonds. But yeah, I don't really obsess about the fats. I do a lot of cheese and fruit. Sorry. Okay, Instagram's about to cut me off in a minute. Hi Jess, other than grandmother's milk and OJ with collagen, is there another easy bedtime snack? My pulse and temp are very low in the morning so far. I know it takes time. LOL, thank you. There's a list of of bedtime snacks in the back of the recipe book. So I would definitely recommend checking those out. Anything that has a little bit of carbs and a little bit of fat is a good bedtime snack. Thoughts on fish as a source of protein? Are little fish better for nutrients? I love fish. I think fish is great. You just kind of have to be careful what type you're eating. You want to eat the littler fish as opposed to the bigger fish that are going to have higher mercury content in them. Suggested easy meal to bring to work that I can eat in 15-minute break. I normally do sandwich but want to get away from bread. Just depends. I usually for lunch I'm just eating what I ate the night before for dinner. So that's my biggest recommendation. I don't think there's anything wrong with a sandwich. I just recommend making your own sourdough on the weekend so that you can eat a really high quality sandwich during the week. But yeah, I just usually do leftovers from the night before, like sweet potatoes and some type of meat. Okay guys, if I didn't get to your question, I'm going to go live again, so ask it then. I'll see you in a second.